You're listening to Superb Diamond Range. I'm your host Superb, broadcasting from Edinburgh. Today's date's the 4th of June, and this show is going to be about running a marathon. Now, a marathon is an amazing thing to do in your life if it's something that interests you. I never sort of saw myself really doing a marathon initially, because I always sort of would worry that it would be too hard, too demanding, and I couldn't see myself training for one. And, just to sort of backtrack a little bit, when I was a lot younger and, when I was, in school, for example, one of my favourite classes was obviously physical education. And I used to not particularly enjoy playing things like football or rugby or even rounders. It's what we used to play back then. But I did really enjoy cross country, and I used to really be excited by, going for long runs and, going into the park and, just being out in nature and just, I was quite competitive at sort of running with my classmates, because I always felt, I felt I had good stamina and I felt like I could run for quite a long time. And, there was obviously people in my class that were a lot faster than me and a lot fitter as well. So they would always sort of push me. And there was even sort of certain classmates that I remember, they weren't good at running always, but they kind of became good because they, maybe realized they had a talent for it. So they would sort of start pushing all of us as well to kind of, perform better. And, from the sort of days of school, I used to enjoy sprinting as well. Again, I was not the fastest, but I used to enjoy sports day and trying to do the 100 meters or the 400 meters. And I remember once doing a 400 meters when I really just went all out in the first 200 meters. Had nothing left in the last 200, and kind of realized that I had the wrong strategy for racing it. But again, I always felt that the longer distances were better for me, because I enjoyed testing my own endurance and my stamina and seeing how far I can go. And, again, cross country was my way to do this. And sort of when the days of school ended and I sort of went into the world of work, I found that I still enjoyed running, and I used to still meet up with friends that were interested in it and, go for a run. And there was even a period when I went to a running club, a local running club, and, I used to enjoy, again, doing cross country with them and also running on the track. And I did learn a lot more about how to stretch and how to, certain exercises that can improve you. And, I even did hurdles at one time, just to give it a try. And that was good fun, but not so easy. But ultimately, I had a friend that we used to enjoy signing up for races. We started off just doing like small races like 10Ks and 5Ks. And then we sort of moved on to half marathons. And the particular half marathon I used to do quite a lot, because it was quite near where I lived, was the Reading half marathon. And a lot of people used to use Reading half marathon as a warm-up for London Marathon. And, many times I did the Reading half marathon and always enjoyed it. And I think there was times when I went to Nottingham as well to do a half marathon there. And again, I really did enjoy it. I used to enjoy just the idea of being able to run around and be able to see new things, and the support of the crowd, really gives you a boost. And, just like a sports person at a sports event, the crowd can give you a lot of energy and a lot of strength to push yourself hard, sort of thing. And there kind of became a time when, I didn't do as much running as I would have liked to, and I kind of became really unfit and even lazy, I would describe it as. And then I sort of, realized I was very unfit and started getting back into running again after stopping. And this sort of happened many times in my life where I would train for a while and then I would stop and then I would train for a while. And I remember deciding that I was going to make the leap from doing a half marathon to a marathon. But what kind of was stalling me was one of the friends that I was running half marathons with was always, he'd done the London Marathon, and he was always saying to me that, it's a massive jump, going from a half to a full, because obviously it's double the distance. And, I almost believed him. And I think because he'd done the London Marathon, he kind of felt, well, I've done it, you haven't. And there was that kind of try to talk me out of it kind of thing, like, so that he'll sort of have a full marathon over me kind of thing. And I was like, okay, I've got to sign up for a marathon. So I kind of, was looking at the different options, and I was considering doing the London one, but I realised that if I didn't enter the ballot and win a place through the ballot, that I'd have to raise an awful lot of money. And I didn't really feel confident in raising the amounts they were asking, although I would like to have tried, but I just didn't feel so confident. So I initially looked at other marathons that were, maybe I could sort of raise some money or just sort of pay to enter. And I ended up choosing the Dublin Marathon. And obviously I had family living in Ireland, and I just thought, it'd be nice to kind of run a marathon and kind of have like a little holiday as well. So I did some training, and I must admit to feeling quite fit. And by the way, this was like over 10 years ago. It was back in 2004. And I think I was a different shape then, a different body and, mind and everything. And I remember even looking at the course, and, I had a cousin that sort of came over with me to sign up for the marathon and, and everything. And, he saw the course, and he couldn't believe like that I was going to run 26 miles around the city. And, I don't even think I knew if I could or not. And I do remember doing it, and I remember really not really knowing what I was doing, and maybe running a bit too quick and not really having keeping to a pace. And it was very amateur the way I approached this marathon, but I managed to finish with a time of 4 hours 47, and I was very happy with it. I mean, to get under 5 hours in a first marathon, I thought it was quite an achievement, and I thought it was really good. And I basically, once I finished the marathon, I was just in so much pain. I had to wait a little while to be picked up to go home, because it was difficult to, there was a lot of diversions and a lot of roads blocked off. So it was difficult for the family to come and collect me. So I felt really, really out of it, just used up everything, put a lot into the race. And, I started to feel like I had a goodie pack afterwards, and I, had a few like snacks from it, to try and keep me going. But I was absolutely starving. And I think my uncle took me to a pub that had like a carvery, eat as much as you like kind of systems. And I must have just gone through 3 plates of roast dinner, basically, of food. And it was just really, 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 I was so hungry, and I felt so good after eating it. And I felt like I deserved it, like I pushed myself really hard. And then that was it. And then over the next 10 years up until now, I got more into things like cycling, than I would say running. But I did still run now and again, but just not as often, and not I didn't keep it going. And obviously I moved from London to Edinburgh, and when I moved up here, I didn't have my bike, so I was kind of like, I need to do some training. And I mean, I initially joined a gym at the beginning of the year, and I thought that was really good, but I kind of realised that the treadmill wasn't the same as running outside. And I thought, I've got to motivate myself to start running again, and not on a treadmill, but road running or in a park. And I thought, what better way to motivate myself than to join the sign up for the Edinburgh Marathon. So I kind of signed up, and I must say that when I did sign up, I did feel like fear because I thought, well, I haven't done one of these in 10 years. I haven't done a half marathon for a long time. I haven't really been running, and I've not got that long really to train. I mean, not the sort of amount of weeks that what would be considered the recommended amount of time to train. So I kind of signed up more to kind of motivate myself quickly. And of course, when I did sign up, I mean, I was aiming to train a lot more on my days off from work than on my days I was working. And of course, when my days came that I was off, I was too lazy. So there'd be days when I wouldn't run at all. And then it would go into weeks where I wouldn't run at all. And then it kind of got to the stage where I was, 2 or 3 weeks away from the marathon, had done no real training. I ended up investing in a really good pair of new trainers because I thought, well, if I'm going to run 26 miles, I want to be comfortable. But even that was quite poor advice, because normally you're supposed to buy your trainers very early so that you can train in them, so that, by the time you do the race, you're comfortable in them. And of course, I ordered my trainers online maybe 2 or 3 days before the marathon, before I even did the marathon, which was, again, really, really poor. And the week or two before, I started to go out for runs after work that were kind of me pushing myself to see how long I could basically run for. And it appeared that the longest I could run for, in training, was 1 hour and 45 to maybe 2 hours worth of training. And this was going all around Arthur's Seat, anybody that's familiar with Edinburgh. So it was it wasn't a flat route, but it was kind of flat at times, but then it was sort of going up the back of a hill, going upwards and then downwards down a hill. And, it was quite a few miles, but I couldn't really tell you exactly. But yeah, the longest was 1 hour 45 to 2 hours. And I kind of put it into myself that I think I can run half this marathon, but I don't know what's going to happen afterwards, because I haven't run for more than 2 hours or for 3 hours in a very, very long time. And I haven't walked for 26 miles for a very long time. So this was really gonna be a tough test. And also, it'd been 10 years since my last one, because a lot of people say that once you've done one, that you should be okay to do another, because your body's gone through that pain before, so your body will remember and it will be able to deal with it. And there is some truth to that, but to me, 10 years is a very long time, and our bodies can change dramatically, and our fitness levels and even age, like you're 10 years older, so things were very different. So I was had a lot of fear of failing. And I mean, there was people at work there was somebody that was doing running as well, and they'd signed up for the half marathon on the same day, but they didn't feel confident to do the full. And they were like, "Are you sure you want to do the full?" And they were kind of giving me a bit of fear of myself, because I was thinking, well, they kind of know that I'm not been training that long, and they're quite a good runner, but all they want to do is a half, because they're not quite, they haven't trained for a full basically. And they would always ask me every day, "Oh, how's your training going? How's your training going?" And I would of course say, "Oh, it's going great, it's going fine. There's no problems there. I went out the other night, or I went out this morning." And I could see by their face they probably didn't believe me or trust me. And I wouldn't blame them, because to be honest, I probably wasn't doing what I was saying. And to me it started to build up, like there was a fear of failing. And obviously I was trying to raise money as well, so I kind of asked a lot of people to sponsor me for a charity that I selected. And I didn't want to let those people down, because I thought, well, it's really kind and really nice that they're helping me, to support this charity that I've chosen. But, ultimately I've got to complete this marathon. So, yeah, I had a lot of people that, again, people kept coming up to me and saying, even my own mother was on the phone to me and was like, "Oh, be careful, son. You haven't done any running. You hopefully you'll be okay. And, I don't know if you'll be able to do it. It's going to be really tough." And I was like, "Oh no, I'll be fine. I can do it. I've done it, 10 years ago, and I haven't done it for a long time, but I think I can, and I haven't trained really." So you can see all the things were building up. So definitely I was starting to get the fear of failing and, doubts in my mind. And, this goes for anything. Anybody's doing something they haven't done or they've done but they haven't done for a long time. You're always going to get like people in your life that are like doubters, naysayers, and they can be in the form of work colleagues, friends, family, acquaintances. So, all this was going on. I knew in the back of my mind the training hadn't quite gone right. There was just a lack of it, to be quite honest. And, each day passed and it was just getting nearer and nearer to the big day of the race. And when I got to do the race, again, just like my wife was with me, in the morning, before the race. And, I must say she really helped me to stay calm and stay relaxed and focused on, what I had to do. But even in my own mind, I was still very nervous about how well I was going to do, and if I was a bit worried about pushing myself so hard that, without even noticing it, I could fall over or collapse, because, that does happen to people that don't train. And, I've seen people in races like half marathons and things that have, under sort of maybe hot, warm conditions, that have just sort of toppled over kind of thing, and, had the ambulance come straight to their attention. So I was kind of really aware of all that. And I just thought to myself, well, I really think that I need to kind of just listen to my body and see how this goes. And, I didn't want to push myself too much. So I just started off at a very slow pace. And each mile that I got through, so for example, mile 1, mile 2, I kept thinking that's been done now, that's completed. And what I kind of compared it to, anybody that's familiar with snooker will know what I'm talking about. You often hear about in snooker that you've got different sessions. So you've got like a morning session, an afternoon session, an evening session. And each session is made up of so many frames, and you can win one session, you can lose another session, or you can win the other, but you can still win the match. And it's kind of like, my attitude was I was looking at the marathon as sessions. So for example, session 1 could be miles 1 to 5, session 2, miles 6 to 10. And I was kind of looking at it from, if I can get through this, then I can get through that, and then I can get through this, and then I'll only have this left. And, to me, the one of the main goals was getting to the halfway mark. So to me, when I got to, the 13th mile, 13.2, I was like, okay, I've hit the halfway mark now. So that's great. But when I did hit the halfway mark, I already started feeling my arms were hurting, my knees were hurting, my thighs were burning, and I had shin splints as well. So I knew that, I somehow got through this first 30 mile, this first half of it, but I still had another 13 miles to go. And to me, it was like, I was looking at the people around me, and there was people of all different abilities and different fitness levels. Some people, it might have been their first marathon, some people not. And I tried to believe that there might be people that have never done it before. So they've never done it before, so it's their first time. So they're going to be just as afraid as I am of failing or not being able to make it all the way to the end. And obviously when you're running as well, you get people that stop on the side of the curb, and they'll be stretching certain parts of their body because, obviously they're feeling a lot of pain in one area, maybe like hamstring, for example. So they'll just stretch their hamstrings to try to make them kind of feel a bit better so that then they can go on to run. And like another thing I noticed throughout the race was every time I felt like the urge to go to the toilet, because I was drinking, water every so often, but I was trying not to drink too much, but not too little. So I was trying to get the balance right. But I also noticed that I've always felt the constant urge to use the toilet. And obviously because I wasn't used to running for a long time without going to the toilet. So I had a lot of toilet breaks throughout the race. And, every time I'd done this, it was just taking up more time. And there was even a point in the race where it was raining really heavily. And I went into one of these sort of portaloos. And, it was rainy, it was windy, and, it was nice and warm in this portaloo. And I was kind of like, I've got 5 or 6 miles left. It's starting to rain. I've just got a t-shirt on. I haven't got a kind of, like a jumper or fleece or anything. I'm starting to feel a bit cold because, it's really not great, the weather, and it's windy as well. And and I was like, do I really want to come out of here? And I started to realize every time I was taking a break, I was actually getting lazier, and it was getting harder to kind of motivate myself, because obviously every time I would stop, I'd realize how much in pain I was all around my body. So I was kind of like, I must push myself, but I've got to kind of keep going, and I've got to keep moving. But how I got through it, I don't know. But all I know is that there was a point when I kind of started to believe that I was going to do it, and I started to think, I have a lot of pain everywhere, but I'm not as bad as I thought I'd be. And that gave me like a lot of confidence. And I was like, I can do this, and it didn't feel that long, because some people talk about the experience of a marathon that, if you keep looking at each mile, so, you turn around one corner, it's the second mile, you turn around the other corner, it's the third. And then you get to the point where you can't remember what mile you're on. And then you get disappointed by what you see. So you might think it's the fifth, but it's actually the fourth, or even the third. And you kind of start to think, I've got ages left, or, I don't know how I'm going to do it. And, it feels like slow motion because you're not, going fast enough to get some miles under you. And, that kind of did happen to me a few times. And I was like, but then there was times when I was actually the opposite of that. I was surprised. I was like, I thought I was on the 21st mile, but it turns out I was on the 23rd. And I started to get confidence from that. And then I had this little thing about it being 26.2. So when I got to the 21st mile, I could have said I've got 5 miles left, but I kept telling myself that when I get to 21.2, I've then got 5 miles left, because, there's still that 0.2 to go. So it was just little things like that kind of lifted me and kept me going. Obviously, when I was running as well, there was, other runners that were running for the same charity as me. And, they overtook me easily. But there was one guy that, he gave me the thumbs up, and he said hi while he was sort of overtaking me, basically, to, and to me that sort of thing lifted me, because it kind of felt like I'm part of a team, or we're doing something good for, a local small charity. And to me, I was very, very happy about that. And the crowds that were out there were really, really great at motivating me, because they were, there was families with their children, and some of the children were bringing out like boxes with, wine gums or some kind of sweets. And, this was really good because, it just made you feel good, and people were like, come on. And people were sort of saying your name because they could see your name on your shirt. And they were, trying to motivate you through that. And, to me, a lot of the people were made it special. Like, they made it what it was. And I think a lot of the people that watch as well, one day it kind of, many of them, it will inspire them to one day do it themselves. They'll be like, instead of me watching it, I'll actually take part in it and experience it. In the same way that I would like to support people in anything they do, or if they wanted to do a marathon or anything, I would always go and support them. And I think that if you can do both sides, it's good, because you can see what it's like for the people running, and then you can see what it's like, as a spectator. Or we, as well as this, I even saw the elite runners, and they're just like machines. They just run, and it just looks easy for them. But ultimately they work at it, and they train really hard, and they're dedicated. And, if we could give a bit of dedication just to our own personal training, like in my case, for example, I put my time down to taking maybe too many breaks, not training properly, and all these things. Like, I've learnt now that, I do want to do another one, and probably another one even after that. I have kind of feel like I've got the bug for it almost, like, that I could do another one. Because when I done it 10 years ago, I was convinced that I don't think I wanted to do it again anytime soon. And it, like, as I say, it took me 10 years to build the courage to do another one. But I think after doing this one and not training quite properly for it, has given me a lot of confidence in that if I did train properly, I could make it more easier and I could actually do a lot better and get more enjoyment out of it. And obviously if you train for it and you have expectations of yourself, so you might say you want to beat your personal best time. Like in this recent one, I was almost an hour slower than my personal best 10 years ago. And when I was talking to people, I thought I could match my personal best, but it just proved that I probably am not as fit as I was back then, but also maybe back then I trained properly. And again, there's no reason I can't beat it now, 10 years later in a 10-year-old body. But it also means that, you know, if I can train and get myself ready physically, mentally, and, you know, basically take it serious, you know, because a lot of people do things and they don't really care. And I think that's kind of my attitude. But at the same time, you've got to realize that this isn't something that you can take lightly because, you know, it can be dangerous. And if you're not, you know, looking after yourself or, you know, because as I say, I found that it was more of a survival mission towards the end, because I was kind of like, I'm in a lot of pain, but I want to get through this and I want to pass the line. But I think next time when I do it, I'll go there with more confidence, because I'll be like, last time you're in a lot of pain because you didn't train. I don't know, pain and train, they sort of rhyme a bit, but maybe there's some connection. But yeah, I think if I do that, and, you know, then I can start to enjoy them, you know, rather than going there and suffering and being in a lot of pain and feeling really, really, really bad afterwards, and, you know, for days afterwards, because it took me 4 days. I'm on my 5th day now, and I was in a lot of pain, and just things like going down the stairs, walking up the stairs, you know, and I was kind of, even just going for a gentle walk with the dog, I found, like, you know, I had a lot of pain, and, you know, but now it's kind of, all the aches and pains have gone away. But, you know, I'd like to do one where I could sort of have 1 or 2 days, and then, you know, all the pain's gone because I've worked really hard and trained properly for it. So yeah, what I'm trying to get at basically is always prepare for a battle, and, you know, do not have fear. And if you do have a fear, work on your fears and try to overcome them. And there's a saying that Schwarzenegger famously said in many of his movies, and this goes for me regarding marathons, and I'll just say what he always says, that I'll be back. So I'll be back to do another marathon, and I'll keep all the rangers in the loop when that time comes. And I'd like to inspire other people that are listening, other rangers that would like to do a marathon, and maybe they've never done a race, or, you know, at all. So, you know, start off small, you know, maybe just do a 10k, a 5k, a half, you know, and then obviously work towards a full one. And, you know, I can guarantee you that you will learn a lot about yourself, and it is a spiritual battle, you know, because you are trying to, you know, push yourself to levels that you might not have known that you could. And as I say, a lot of people haven't run for more than 3 hours, or even walked for more than 3 hours in one go. So if you see it from that perspective, it kind of makes you think, well, yeah, it would be nice to see what happens after that, because most people haven't pushed themselves to that limit. So definitely I do recommend it. Okay, so once again, thanks for listening to the podcast. I'll just give you my website, which is superbdiamondrange.com, and also I'm on Twitter, which is the @superbdiamondra or superbdiamondra. And if you'd like to contact me via email, the email is superbdiamondrange@gmail.com. Once again, thanks for listening.